Hey guys, this is John. I want to show you a snippet from a game I played in 2016 at the London Chess Classic FIDE Open. This was a long time control tournament game, and this example really highlights the importance of being thorough with your calculations and following your forcing moves. So we joined the position on move 21. I was playing white here. I was up against Hugh Ditmas, FIDE rating 2018. It is white to move, and I'm not going to give you guys any particular objectives beyond finding the best continuation for white. So white to move, find the best continuation. And by continuation, I mean not just one single move. So try to decide how the game is likely to proceed. So you're playing as white, what's your move? But also try to forecast the game. And ideally, your line should be backed up with some additional calculations, perhaps. So if you want to pause the video and give this a shot, feel free to do so. White to move. All right, working with some herbal tea today, some peppermint. I'm at my coffee allotment for the day. It's 6 o'clock p.m. right now, so going to back off the coffee. All right. So if you noticed this weakening of the long diagonal leading towards black's king, that's an important starting point because this bishop on b2, without the knight in the way, would be absolutely slicing through the black position. And with that, there's this idea of getting the queen to d4 and setting up a queen-bishop battery. So, we're always looking at our forcing moves, our checks, and our captures. Here, there's not too many purely forcing moves to look at. Knight takes g6 is perhaps a move that you may have considered. I think I also looked at this briefly during the game, sacrificing the knight and trying to free up the d4 square for the queen. This looks pretty attractive, looking for queen g7 or queen h8. However, black can play, possibly among other defenses, bishop e5 and throw the bishop in the way. And if white takes with the pawn, then play queen takes d5. This would just be the clinical way for black to shut down this attack on the diagonal. And if white is forced to trade queens or move the queen off of the diagonal, then black can be relatively certain that they're not going to get checkmated anytime soon. So I wasn't satisfied with that line. It just seemed like too much of a investment for very dubious gain. But I definitely wanted to try to work the queen into d4 in some capacity and make this line stronger. So another extremely strong candidate move here is knight c6. So attacking the queen on d8, it's not strictly a top-tier forcing move because it's not a check or a capture, but it contains a major threat, hitting the queen. And that's kind of the next tier of candidate moves that you always want to be looking at, major threats. So hitting your opponent's queen, threatening a checkmate in one, those are also prime moves to look at in virtually any position. So if we visualize knight c6, black may take it, bishop takes c6, and then queen d4, I saw a problem with this line. So I thought black could at that point play bishop e5 once again, looking to block, pawn takes, and again queen takes d5. Very similar to the previous line. However, if you spotted the difference between that line and the previous one, or you just found the best move in that line in general, congratulations, because that's the key to the position. And it is the move rook takes c6. Okay, so I know I just drew a bunch of lines there, but let's play it out. So knight c6, attacking the queen, bishop takes c6, queen d4, threatening queen g7 mate, also queen h8 for good measure. We'll look at a couple defenses for black here, but the main move is bishop e5, trying to block, pawn takes on e5, queen takes d5, and now the move rook takes c6. And I did not see this move in my calculations, and hence I did not go for queen d4 on the second move here. But this would have been an absolute killer. So the queen is now undefended on d5. We're threatening to take it. And if black were to take on c6, now we play e6 and we open this diagonal again. Threatening queen g7 mate, also threatening queen h8 mate. And notice that the pawn on e6 is pretty handy because it controls this flight square that the black king could go to. So if black were to play rook e7 and guard g7, well, we're still checkmating them. So my failing in my calculation was not taking the forcing moves to their natural conclusion. I mentally stopped at this point, and I said, okay, looks like black's offering a queen trade, and I might have to give way on the diagonal. Not enough here. I think I maybe even looked at queen c3, attacking the bishop with the idea of e6 next, but black can play rook e6, and I wasn't satisfied. Didn't seem like things were opening up. But yes, this forcing move, rook takes c6, does the trick. Also note after rook takes c6, if black were to trade queens, bishop takes d4, white simply up a bishop here, dominating position. Some other lines. So knight c6, bishop takes c6, queen d4. If black tries to avoid bishop e5 and give white the option of queen g7 or queen h8, but try to avoid getting checkmated, it doesn't work out. There is one line, actually, that keeps black afloat, which I did not see during the game. It's kind of subtle, but that's back a move. If, for instance, black plays queen e7, trying to guard g7, then queen h8 check, king f7, queen g7 is mate. Notice again the role of this pawn. So it guards the e6 square. Queen d7 also leads to checkmate. Queen h8, king f7, queen g7 mate. Rook e7 leads to a nice variation. So this time black may be looking to create a possible running path for the king. But there we have queen h8 check, king f7, queen g7 check, not even taking the pawn. So that on king e8 we can give a check here. And after king d7, play the very nice d takes c6 checkmate at the very end with the queen guarding the e6 square. Nice, almost smothered mate style idea on the black king. So I'm quite certain that queen d4 would have won me the game because this position did occur in the game. But instead, I didn't see that, and I ended up playing rook takes c6. And I wound up winning this game, but it was a long slog. And looking back at it later with the help of the engine, I was really kicking myself for having missed that extremely nice point with queen takes d5, rook takes c6. I should also mention if black takes with the bishop on d5, because the bishop is under attack, and I'm looking to play e6 next. So if black plays bishop takes d5 instead, we still send the e-pawn forward. The only thing the e-pawn is good for is clearing the way for the queen-bishop battery, so this also will be mating. The one line that actually keeps black afloat here after knight c6 is to play queen h4, allowing queen d4, so still setting up this battery and looking for queen g7 mate, and then playing queen h6. But again, I didn't see this in the game. This is the computer's defense, although white is definitely in the catbird seat. Queen f6 is what the engine wants to play, and there's a certain level of paralysis going on in black's position. I think it's very, very tough. White can even play something like h4, h5 is one idea, possibly even double up on the c-file, maybe hit the c7 pawn in the long run. Really tough when black is staring down this queen-bishop battery at any point. We can also play queen h8 check, king here, then queen f6, and actually get the same position, just throwing in the checks. So that's even better. Move like h4 now, white effectively gained a tempo compared to that last variation. So, overarching message from this tactic that I failed to see in the game. If you have forcing moves and you have the time on your clock, you should try to calculate your forcing moves to their conclusion. Also, those forcing moves that are near the top tier of forcing moves. So major threats, attacking your opponent's queen, setting up a checkmate in one. And sometimes I think it's even helpful to go a half move or maybe even a full move beyond where you naturally want to wrap up your calculation. Let me say that again because that sounds counterintuitive. So where your chess brain naturally wants to wrap up a line, it may make sense to push a little bit beyond that just to see if you're not missing any moves. Because if I would have asked myself here mentally, well, what other forcing moves do I have available? I mean, is it just queen takes d5, or do I have any other decent moves? I'm quite sure I would have played rook takes c6 or found this line and ultimately played it. So, yeah, as played, knight c6, bishop takes c6. I took with the rook, as I said, and the game continued. He played king f7 here. I went queen d4, rook g8, and actually black was able to cover these critical dark squares that otherwise black had difficulty covering. And again, I went on to win, but it was kind of a long grind. Won a pawn. Yeah, ended up winning some further pawns and eventually emerged victorious with a passed D and C pawn in the middle of the board. Even a passed B and A pawn for good measure, actually. Black resigned in this position. So, follow those forcing moves. Be complete with your calculations if you have the time, for sure. And good things will happen with the lines that you're looking at in your games. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Bye.